All right. Hey, everybody. I am so stoked to be back doing Storied San Francisco. I am an anxious person, and I've learned to take breaks when possible. So, um, season wrapped in August, and just looking at the calendar, I was like, two months or so is perfect. Good time for me to, take a breath, get my bearings, get some perspective on what the hell all of this is, to be honest. What it is, what it has been, what I want it to be moving into the future. So just wanted to check in with y'all, give you an idea of kind of what to expect this upcoming season. A lot is going to be the same. Let's be real. It's always been my goal to introduce you to or have you get to know better people, places, the stuff that makes the city so special to all of us. We all have different probably definitions of what San Francisco is to us. But I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you're listening to this podcast, even if it's your first time to listen, you probably love San Francisco. You might have a lot of gripes with it, but that's just part of, I think, not only living here, but living in the world. Anyway, so season 7. A week from today is going to be the official episode 1, and I'm going to have 2 episodes in October that are already recorded in the can, and you're going to notice a theme between the two. They are political in nature in the sense that the guests on the show of episode 1 and 2 are candidates for office. And while my featuring of these folks is some sort of, implicit endorsement of their candidacy, I don't want you to think that I'm necessarily trying to sway anyone. All I've tried to do from day one with Storied San Francisco is, again, help you get to know someone better. And I think that's what I ended up doing with these 2 folks. So, big election at every level. Obviously, the national election, presidential election, some Senate races, all the House races are important. There's no denying that. And then as we move a little closer, state level, a lot of propositions. I mean, California never disappoints. So do yourself a favor and read up on those. My preferred way to go about, sifting through all of the noise around a lot of the propositions at the state and the local level. Some of the best ways to do that I've found is to, find yourself some sources for endorsements. My preferred source is San Francisco League of Pissed Off Voters. You can choose whoever. There's a lot of people smarter than me that are doing the work of evaluating a lot of this stuff. I think another thing that's instructive is to look at who is funding the ads and the candidates. That information is a little tricky to find sometimes, but it's always there. By law, it has to be there. So no matter what, no matter where you fall on issues or on candidates, definitely do a little bit of work. I mean, living in a democracy is, I believe, it's a right and it's a privilege. And with those things come responsibility. And I think it's our responsibility to be as informed as we can. So another thing I wanted to mention, sort of related around elections, but more kind of like some weird stuff that's been going on. I guess he's a journalist. He's a former speechwriter for Jerry Brown. He's worked with Kamala Harris, I believe, when she was Attorney General of California. But his name is Gil Duran, and he has a newsletter called The Nerd Reich that I've been really enjoying. He's very, very thoroughly researched, and he's got his finger on the pulse of some really shady shit that's going on, not only in San Francisco and the Bay Area, but in California, some stuff around the country, some stuff around the world. Yeah, I just thought I'd give that newsletter, The Nerd Reich, a plug. Okay, so some things that will be changing coming up in season 7. Many of you probably noticed, I don't know if I ever talked about it, but early in season 6, Michelle Kilfeather, unfortunately for all of us and for me, had to step away from Storied San Francisco. It was just becoming a little too much with some other things she's juggling in her life. And, Michelle and I kicked this thing off 7 years ago together. So it was very bittersweet, sort of. I don't want to say losing Michelle because that sounds so dramatic, but losing the level of participation that she had been giving to the show. I just want to say, mad respect for Michelle. She's a dear, dear friend of mine. And I believe without her photographs, Storied San Francisco would be not even half of what it has become. So just a big heartfelt thank you to Michelle. So to make up for Michelle's absence for the rest of season 6, I ended up just doing photos on my phone myself. And I consider that a Band-Aid approach. It did the job, I think, sometimes better than others. I'm not going to pretend to be a visual artist. I know my limitations, but, phone cameras are what they are. And I think they've helped me to kind of attempt to make up for the loss of Michelle in the sense of the podcast. So, I've been doing that, but also been kicking the idea around because I'm fortunate enough to know so many talented photographers in the city, in the Bay Area. So what I did was over the summer, during my break, I reached out to a bunch of them with the idea of putting together a photographer pool. And the way that's going to work is you're probably going to be seeing from episode to episode. Sometimes it'll be me, and then it'll kind of change from episode to episode. It'll be a different photographer, possibly, every time. Anyway, just something to look forward to. And, I considered it a way to get that level of quality back that Michelle provided, in the sense of like really fucking talented photographers taking photos of the guests of the show. But also for me, a way to promote those photographers as well, promote their work, not only what they're doing for Storied, but their work outside of the podcast and everything they have going on. So yeah, so something to look forward to is that the photography will be different. And I hope better. The big change, and I've gotten over being self-conscious about this. It just is what it is. There's going to be ads in the podcast. And so I struggled with this for a long time. I was like, I can't continue to just pay for this project out of my pocket. I am going to be real with y'all. I don't have a lot of money. I am lucky enough to have a full-time job with really great benefits. But like a lot of you, I live in a very expensive place. And so, for the last 7 years, I've just been paying for everything out of pocket, all my equipment, the monthly charges of web hosting and podcast hosting, like hosting of the actual audio and everything that goes out with that. Those are monthly charges. Then I've got like a yearly website domain registration that I need to pay for. Anyway, there's all this stuff to pay for. And now bringing in photographers, I don't expect anyone to do work for free. And so I've carved out a way to provide a little bit of a stipend for the photographers for every time, they shoot photos for me. All this to say, I needed a way to raise money. And while I listen to a lot of podcasts and I hear a lot of, national advertising, I didn't want that sort of kind of impersonalization, that like lack of familiarity and the lack of, I don't want to say intimacy, but So what I did was I decided to reach out to as many small business owners in the city that I know, a lot of whom have been on the podcast. Their lives and their businesses have been featured. And I thought, why not start there? Start with the people whose businesses I want to promote and I want to celebrate. And so, so starting with episode 1 next week, and they might not end up being in every episode, but I'm doing what I can to sell as many ads as I can. I've also made it affordable for the businesses, knowing some of the struggle that they're going through to just exist, to keep their doors open, to just keep everything churning. And so, I wanted something that worked for everyone. None of the ads are going to be very long. I think 30 seconds is kind of where I'm looking at maxing out. So I'm going to say I hope you don't mind the intrusion. It's just a necessity of life. So, and also, an intrusion, but also the ads that will appear on the podcast will be, I am imagining, always in line with what I've always done, which is to celebrate artists, activists, and small businesses. So it shouldn't be that much of an intrusion. Let's be real. All right. So season 7, 7 years. I finally settled on a theme. I'm really excited about it. The theme for season 7 is going to be Keep It Local. And with that in mind, the first episode next week is with San Francisco Board of Supervisors president and mayoral candidate, and someone who's devoted a quarter of a century of his life to the city, Aaron Peskin. So whether you've made up your mind on who you're going to vote for mayor, whether you already have opinions of Aaron Peskin, I really hope you'll tune in and listen and get to know this person as a person. Besides just being my candidate of choice, he has a really incredible life story that you just kind of have to hear to believe. So look for that a week from today. I'm super excited. Again, I'm excited to just be back at it. I'm excited for all the ways that I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. And some of these slight tweaks and changes that I've been talking with you about. So thank you for listening to this episode, and definitely subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, and go to our website, storiedsf.com, where you'll be immediately prompted to sign up for our monthly newsletter. I've got a new newsletter. It's going to go out on the 2nd tomorrow. So if you're listening to this on the 1st, on Tuesday, definitely sign up. A lot of cool stuff in the podcast worth checking out. All right, that's about it. Thanks, y'all. See you next week. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 7th season, we have more than 220 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please, please, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at StoriedSF, and reach out to us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be extra careful crossing the street, and keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. See you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.